The first strategy that you can use to write with plain English is using simple words in your documents. Using big words in writing does not make you smarter, and that does not make your writing very influential. Therefore, your writing should be as simple as possible. For example, there are two statements below. The first one, he failed to capture the robber in his first attempt but succeeded in the second. The second sentence is that he could not capture the robber in his first try, but he succeeded in the second. The first sentence is more difficult for the reader to understand on the first reading because the usage of failed to capture makes it difficult for the reader to understand it. However, you can easily simplify this statement saying, as you see here, he could not capture the robber in his first try but succeeded in the second. Try is easier for the reader to understand than attempt. Therefore, we can say that the second sentence is easier for the reader because it was written with plain English. Here are some difficult words and alternative plain ones to make understanding easier in written documents. Ascertain, it is difficult to understand, however you can say find out instead of saying ascertain. At such time as, it is difficult, but when is very simple and very common. Concur, it is difficult, it is not known by everybody, but agree is simpler. Determine the location, you can easily say locate. Endeavor, it is more difficult, it is not known by everybody, but try is simpler and known by almost everybody speaking English as a foreign language. Enter into a discussion, it is difficult, but you can easily say discuss. Give assistance, it is difficult, but you can easily say assist or help rather than saying giving assistance. In relation to, about is easier than in relation to. You can say start or begin rather than saying initiate. Make an adjustment, it is difficult to understand, but adjust is simpler. Moreover is less common, but and is more common. Numerous, it is difficult to understand, you can say many. Prior to, it is difficult for the reader, but before is much common. Reach a conclusion, but you can say conclude. Sufficient is less common than enough, so writing with enough is easier for the reader to understand. Utilize is less common, but writing with use is easier. The second strategy that you can use to write with plain English is using active verbs. Active voice is clearer and easier to understand, and it has more impact than passive voice. For example, a meeting will be held by the committee next Monday. The committee will meet next Monday. The second sentence is easier for the reader to understand because it was written with an active verb. However, the first sentence is more difficult for the reader because it was written with a passive verb. However, using passive voice is appropriate when you don't know who performed the action, when it doesn't matter who performed the action, when you want to avoid blaming someone, or when you want to soften adjective. The third strategy that you can use to write with plain English is using short sentences in your writing. Your sentences should be on average between 15 or 20, no more than 20. You can keep your sentences short and direct, so they become easier for the reader to read and understand. Here are two texts. The first one, it is longer. The second one is shorter. There are longer sentences in the first text, and there are shorter sentences in the second text. The words in the first sentences are more difficult to understand for the reader. However, the words in the second text is easier for the reader to understand. That's why the first text is more difficult for the reader to understand, because there are too many long sentences for the reader. But the second text is easier to understand.